Bank of America failed. Yeah, I think the banking problem is not going away. I have a bad feeling about it when Warren Buffett, maybe it's just nothing more than him selling and taking a profit and moving on. But I will tell you, to me, it kind of is spooky.
Warren Buffett, the world's greatest value investor, has been selling stock after stock and holding cash. Why? Because even he sees it coming. What if your money, safe in the bank or in a money market fund, suddenly becomes unreachable? That's exactly the risk we're facing, as major banks like Bank of America and Wells Fargo could be sacrificed. In today's video, Andy Schectman uncovers the dangerous truth about bail-ins, money market gating, and the financial domino effect that could change everything. If you think your money is safe, think again. Stay tuned, because this is the information you need to hear before it's too late.
12 consecutive sessions, he sold stock and lots of it Bank of America. He's the greatest value investor of all time, yet he's massively in cash. What does that tell you about what he thinks of the value? Most of what he had sold was already done by the end of the second quarter, along with many of the insiders. And I have felt for a very long time, Bill is like my brother, and he always corrects me. He said it's too stupid to not be planned. I say it's too stupid to be stupid. Same thing. But when you look at the banks, if you wanted to cull the banks, knowing that most people have no idea what a bail-in is, really, truly, most people have no idea. And even fewer people know about money market gating at the same time that the money markets are now at all-time high records. People are flooding into the money markets and they feel safe there. But during the Dodd-Frank Act, they imposed money market gating. You and I have talked about that on this show, and you actually had, in real time, suffered something to that extent. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And people who think they're safe in a money market earning 4.5%, if the system breaks or a bank like Bank of America were sacrificed at the altar, those people would in real time have a religious experience. Their money is stuck. You cannot move out. And it's called breaking the buck, where when Lehman Brothers went down, it carried with it much of the money market funds. Everyone tried to yank it, and they imposed you can't do that anymore. You have to go down with the sinking ship. I have felt for a long time they will sacrifice one of the big boys. And, there was an investigation going on in, if I had to guess what this is about, I can't say it's true, but there was an investigation, I think, with TD Bank in Canada, had something to do with improprieties, had maybe something to do with money laundering, drug money, whatever it was. And the article I read said, well, this isn't over yet. There are banks, big ones in the United States, that are in the crosshairs of this scandal as well. And maybe this is what it is. Ted Butler, God rest his soul, for a year told us that Bank of America was the one that had 1 billion ounces of silver short in the OTC market and 35 or 40 million ounces of gold short in the OTC market. Maybe that is the case. When you see Warren Buffett selling, a man who is inside the inside ring, it's concerning. And if I were to guess, I've said for a long time, if they were going to sacrifice one of the banks, I think it would be Bank of America or Wells Fargo. If one of those banks were to fail and be bailed in, you can only imagine the carnage. You can only imagine the panic. You can only imagine the bank runs. But that's exactly what the modern monetary theorist wants. Call the banks, create chaos, bring all, and that's what Jerome Powell told us, that there will be bank consolidations. Well, if Bank of America failed, and everyone said, my goodness, they're being bailed in, everyone lost everything, the run on the banks would be something to, that would be written about in history books for 100 years, that it would be right up there with the chaos surrounding the Great Depression. It would happen like that. And that's exactly what a modern monetary theorist who wanted to get rid of the nearly 5,000 banks would do: bring down one of the big boys and let it get bailed in and let all of that money market money get gated. And, watch how fast they roll out the CBDC. Watch how fast they come in on a white horse and say, but we're here to save the day. I think the banking problem is not going away. The Basel III mandates go into effect, I want to say sometime in October, where they have to hold a whole whopping 4% in terms of reserve requirements. These banks have virtually nothing in the way of reserves. And if 4% would be a well-capitalized bank, what does that really say to the entire system? And I just think people are underestimating the significance of the problems that would result if a major bank were to go down, and with this commercial real estate problem increasing, with the problems in the cities where the lack of demand in all of these commercial properties that have been built up for a very, very, very long time, it's going to bring down some banks. And why not bring down one of the big ones if you really wanted to reset the system? If all of this is too stupid to be stupid, it wouldn't take much more than sacrificing Bank of America the same way they sacrificed, Lehman Brothers, and let it go. Don't bail them out. Let them be bailed in and watch the carnage that happens. It would be a black swan that people, I don't think, have any idea how fast it would crater the whole system. But if that's what you wanted to do and issue a CBDC, it's not a bad way to do it. And you can blame Bank of America instead of blaming everyone else. Then it deflects and misdirects the blame. I have a bad feeling about it when Warren Buffett, maybe it's just nothing more than him selling and taking a profit and moving on. But I will tell you, to me, it kind of is spooky. There's so much stuff that we don't know about that is happening under the surface. And to think that Bank of America could have a crosshair on it and they're going to tell Warren about it, why not? Why is that not possible with all of the craziness we've seen over the last few years? To think that that isn't possible, there's a very fine line between conspiracy and reality. That I do know. And, so I guess nothing surprises me. But ask yourself, why make these rules? Why make money market gating? Why make bail-in legislation? Why do all of these things if you're not prepared to ultimately enact them? And I think, coupled with David Rogers Webb's great taking, anyone that has a tremendous amount of money within a system like Bank of America needs to think twice, especially when we hear stories like this. That's 36,000 ounces a day at current prices. It's a 600% increase in what they were doing. And when you put that in context to what we are seeing coming off of the exchanges, to me, it's part and parcel with what I've been screaming over and over and over again. Yeah, I say the same stuff. I do, but it keeps happening and it keeps happening and it keeps happening. And if you don't pay attention, you miss it. The recent data, as of August 31st, shows us that when you talk about the amount of silver that's been taken off just the LBMA in the last month, from July 31st to August 31st, July 31st, they call it the float in London. There's 800 million ounces of silver in London on the LBMA. 500 million belong to the ETF. So the float, the 300 million, are the ounces that are available to be delivered that back the bars. So when we talk about the float at the last day of July in 2024, that float was 336 million ounces of silver, or 10,440 tons. At the end of August 31st, 1 month later, it's 309 million, or 9,599 tons. In other words, 27 million ounces, or 8.1% of all the silver in the London vaults was drawn down in 1 month, in the month of August. And so when you talk about how fast this is happening, it's ridiculous. And then you look at COMEX, and since November 2020, when I started on talking about this with you, that's about when I started talking about all the deliveries coming off of COMEX that had never happened before. Never. We've seen in gold, 2,136 tons of gold have stood for delivery, and 24,072 tons of silver have stood for delivery. And I remember I said that just in terms of the amount of 336 million ounces is 10,440 tons. Well, since November of 2020, we have seen this massive amount of 24,000 tons taken off. So you're talking, almost what are we talking? 800 million ounces. That's almost the exact amount that India has imported in the last 3 years. And so this is something that should not be overlooked or taken lightly. That doesn't even take into account those numbers off of COMEX, the exchange for physical, which we've talked about, where massive amounts of gold and silver are purchased in the West and delivered in other parts of the world, usually London, but there is that little known contract that was developed in 2015.
Are you ready? Bank failures, bail-ins, gated money markets. This isn't speculation, it's happening right now. The question isn't if, but when. Don't wait for the storm to hit. Protect yourself, educate yourself, and stay one step ahead of the system before it's too late. If you found this video valuable, make sure to like, subscribe, share, and stay tuned for more insights to keep you informed in these uncertain times. Thank you.